Hi, I'm Gary White for Central Kentucky Television. I'm here with Mary Ann Ohsol, who is going to tell us about some of her experiences with the Red Cross. Mary Ann has been doing some first responder work recently with the Red Cross, but you also have experience doing it with the, it used to be the Southern Baptist, but now the Kentucky Association that helps with people.
Kentucky Baptist.
Kentucky Baptist Association as well, right?
Yes.
So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and you were going to be heading back up to New York. You were in New York recently with Hurricane Sandy.
Yes.
We'll hear a little bit about your experiences there. But first, tell us a little bit about yourself, if you would.
As far as volunteering, I've done a lot of FEMA training, and I just recently got my ham radio license, which is just for backup for disasters here locally.
Okay.
And let's see, I help people in the grips of alcohol and drug abuse, and I'm a scholarship chairman of with the NAACP, and I volunteered in the hospital and with senior companions, and I still visit the nursing homes, and I work with our church ladies, and I support the food pantry. And I swim, and I'm supposed to go to National Senior Olympics in July in Cleveland.
Oh, wow, that's exciting.
And I'm in the CMA, which is a Christian motorcycle group.
Okay.
And I'm the chairman of our Block Watch, which is a program we're still setting up with Officer Jewell.
Okay.
And I'm very nervous talking on television, so I had to write everything down so I didn't forget it.
Well, you're doing a great job. Now, Mary Ann is from Marion County. You've lived here since 1979, you're saying,
yes.
right? So you've been here quite a while.
Yes.
Yes. And consider it home, I assume. But you get to travel around to lots of different places with this first responder program that you've been working with, too. Now, tell us, this time, most recently, you were in New York for Hurricane Sandy, right?
Yes.
How did that come about, and what did you do while you were up there?
Well, Red Cross called me, and I was available back in the end of October, right after Sandy happened. So I went up, and I was fortunate to be able to work in the shelters. And I was in Glen Cove, which we had for like a day and a half, and that's on Long Island. And then they shut us down because we still didn't have any power. And we were both, basically, we had over 100 residents, and we were living on water and granola bars, and it was bottled water. There was no water either. So then the city shut that down, and we took those people to Manhasset, and we still didn't have good water or electricity, and we were still basically water and granola bars. And then they got it incorporated into the big shelter at Nassau Community College. And we had 900 people in that shelter, the main shelter, plus we had a shelter for the people that were sick or were disabled, or the elderly, a special needs shelter. And then we also separately had an animal shelter, which we had 200 animals in.
Oh, wow.
And in the big shelter, I was basically a runner. I helped some with registration, but I was basically a runner, getting people socks or toothbrushes or special needs beds or whatever they needed. And in the beginning, we just had turkey sandwiches and some fruit, mostly pears, and bottled water. And then the donations started coming in, and electricity got put back up. So we finally had electricity, and our first hot meal was from the Muslims. Young Muslims came from all over the country, and they got a certified kitchen, and they cooked us hot food. So our first hot meal was yellow lentil soup and tomato pasta. Best food I ever had.
So how long had that been since that you were up there by that point?
That was about 9 days into it.
Mm-hmm. So
we were living on turkey sandwiches, and we had no refrigeration, so the food inspectors would come through and throw them out periodically because they were the wrong temperature. I never want to see another turkey sandwich.
That's understandable. So how did you first get involved in first responder services?
Well, when we had the flood, I went up to Bradfordsville to help, and these people had yellow shirts on.
When was that?
I don't know the year. What year was that? The Bradfordsville had a bad flood. It was several years ago.
Yeah, quite a while.
And people had yellow shirts on, and I was helping, and then I said, can I have a yellow shirt? And they said, oh no, we're an organization, and you have to be trained if you want to be part of our organization. And Hayden Johnson told me the training was in E-Town, to definitely go to it. It was a really good organization. So that's how I started with the Baptists. And then I worked alongside of the Red Cross in several different disasters in several different states. And met Susan Harden, and Hayden suggested too. Well, there were FEMA trainings. So I started taking the FEMA trainings we had here, and then I took several online. And FEMA and Red Cross work real closely. So I somehow fused into Red Cross and started their trainings. And working with our local chapter. And then this national disaster happened, and Red Cross called me 5 minutes before the Baptists, so I ended up deploying with the Red Cross. So I worked 3 weeks in the shelter, and then I came home a week, and then I went back and have been doing client casework and working in the disaster recovery centers. But the people up there, it's really culture shock to come home to where life is normal, because the people up there are still really suffering, and we have many, many, many that are still homeless. And in the shelters we had every kind of people, from the disabled to people who had jobs until they lost their homes and their cars. And the elderly were really amazing. They were it was just interesting working in the shelter, and they formed their own little communities, and they'd watch over each other's cots and kind of take care of each other. And then we slept in a Red Cross staff shelter, which was at a SUNY Old Westbury College. So we had 300 people in our shelter that we slept with, and it was an hour drive back and forth, and every single day, every single drive, we'd all get lost because traffic lights didn't work. Trees were down, roads were flooded, so it took a good hour to get back and forth.
So this has been your experience with the first responders that you've been doing for the past couple of years now, with some different events locally as well as there. Now, with the Red Cross, they do rely upon volunteers. And you've been very active with the Red Cross. We just had a new unit that has been dedicated for our area here for helping with disasters that we covered last week. So I know you were there, and I asked you if you would possibly come and talk with us a little about your experiences. Because the Red Cross for our area is actually out of Nelson County, but it covers Nelson County, Marion County, and Washington County. It's kind of Central Kentucky's unit. Susan Harden is in charge of the Red Cross there. And they're always looking for volunteers, not necessarily just to go to other disasters, but also locally. And we do have trainings for that. And you were saying, actually, next week you're going to be going to another training, correct?
Yes, the Disaster College is all week in Louisville, and anyone that's interested can call Susan Harden for more information. I'll give you that number at the end. The American Red Cross is an incredible organization, and it works on miracles. It works with volunteers. Every time I would go into headquarters, it was all new faces, because the majority volunteer for 2 weeks, and so the people keep changing, but it keeps working. It's really, really a miracle. The American Red Cross is awesome. And when I worked in the disaster relief centers, which I did, disaster resource centers for 5 weeks, we had people from, I worked in Brooklyn, and we had people that lost their homes, and there's a lot of elderly immigrant population, and it was really, really hard for them, because we or HUD could place them in a temporary apartment, but they wouldn't leave their neighborhood because they were old and they only spoke Russian, as an example. So the hardest part is with the elderly immigrants. And I mean, it's really hard to imagine. Like, one day you have a car and a job and a home and clothes, and the next day you find yourself in a shelter and you have nothing, and you get fired because you don't have a car. And we still have many, many homeless people up there. And our latest figures, we've been working more than 11 weeks, and we're still distributing approximately, on an average day, 33,000 meals and snacks in New York. And we're supporting several community banks in New York to help provide an additional 60,000 meals a day to the hardest hit areas. And so thanks to the generous public support, the American Red Cross has provided food, shelter, and relief supplies and comforts to tens of thousands of Sandy survivors. And it's still really bad right now. when I go back, I'll probably be working as client casework, and we're working closely with FEMA, and we're trying to get people out of hotels and into more permanent housing. And we're trying to help them overcome the barriers to that. Like maybe they have a job and they could pay their rent, but they don't have first and last month's deposit and utility deposits, so we would help with that.
Right.
So the American Red Cross is just trying to do as much as they can to get the people on their feet.
So initially when you went, it was assessing what's going on, helping the needs that were right then that need to be taken care of. So now, after a few months later, you're actually dealing with helping getting the people who are affected back into a sense of normalcy, I assume. Is that correct?
Exactly. Good summary.
So that's what you're going to be doing now.
Yes.
So again, it's volunteer work that you're doing,
Yes.
and do you enjoy it?
Oh, very much, very much. It's very rewarding. And I've just made so many good friends with all the volunteer American Red Crossers that come from all over the country and internationally, and all the people I've gotten to serve. I just love the New Yorkers. They're really resilient, amazing, wonderful people, and I'm so blessed to have been a volunteer and to have met them, and I'm anxious to go back and help some more.
Well, we appreciate you going and doing all this stuff, because it takes, as we said, the volunteers from all over to make this happen. And Mary Ann is one of those volunteers who's taken upon herself to help those in need.
Well, we have a really good local chapter, and you mentioned that it's run by Susan Harden. She's an American Red Cross director, and she is amazing. She's like 3 people in one. She's like the ever-ready bunny. She never stops. And she has helped us set up local disaster relief. So next time we have a disaster, whether it be an ice storm or a hurricane or tornado or the dreaded New Madrid fault earthquake they talk about, we will be ready and we can set up shelters immediately. We have a board of directors for our disaster relief, and we've met with all the community partners.
Right.
So we are ready. We have gotten our supplies together, and Carter Wind and Mrs. Wind and the Four Winds Foundation donated our trailer, which they just wrote an article about in today's. We've got that full of supplies and ready to go. So I'm really proud of Susan for pulling us all together with the American Red Cross, and it's really been rewarding to work with the people locally.
Right. And the local people who are volunteering get the experience, so when an emergency does occur here,
right,
we have people who have experience and can do what needs to be done.
Yes, and one of my motivations in going to New York and working this major disaster, which we've never had one like, is to bring back my knowledge to the local area and be able to help with what I've learned up there, bring it back here and help with that.
Yes. So as you said, there is a phone number that you can call if you're interested in helping out with the Red Cross. You can go to www.redcross.org, or we have a local phone number. It's 502-348-1893. And as we said, it is out of Nelson County, but it covers Nelson, Marion, and Washington counties. We're all one unit for the Red Cross.
And if you'd like to make a donation, the easiest way is online with www.redcross.org, and they will know by your zip code, and so the money will come to our local chapter, and you can just earmark it disaster relief if you want. But we operate solely on donations, and we're all 96% is volunteer. So, and if you're interested in helping us or joining, definitely call this number. Get in touch with American Red Cross in Bardstown, and that's 502-348-1893.
Right. Visit redcross.org, find out more, make a donation, and possibly become part of the cure for all these issues, right?
Yes, and you can also sign up for classes on redcross.org.
And in Marion County, too, we do have a group here. Actually, Jane Higdon, Senator Higdon's wife, is running the group here in Marion County, as well as Judge Mangley. He's on that as well, and Hayden Johnson, our Emergency Management Director.
Yes.
So any of them can also lead you some information for the Red Cross. And Susan Harden has an office in Nelson County as well for the Red Cross, right by the Civic Center over there.
And on our board we have Jody George and Lorraine Scott, and Marty Wheatley and Barbara Ivy, and of course myself. So anyone you want to talk to or ask questions, we're all available for you.
Great. Well, thank you very much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you, Gary.
We appreciate it. Again, I've been here with Mary Ann Ohsol, who is with the Red Cross. She's going to be going back up to New York to help with volunteering there again for Hurricane Sandy. And call 502-348-1893 or visit redcross.org to get more information. This has been Gary White with Central Kentucky Television.